Welcome to The Growth Shift, the podcast where we unlock the psychological and strategic blueprints of predictable growth. If you've built a successful business, you know the truth. Your expertise is high value, but your time is finite. The question is, how do you sustain that success without sacrificing your most valuable asset? We believe that the next level of success requires a strategic pivot, a fundamental shift that moves beyond the old ways. In every episode, we dive into the critical turning points of industry leaders and uncover how they're leveraging AI not as a shortcut, but as the strategic force for their next growth shift. Today, we dive in with a leader who is defining the future of their industry.
This episode is brought to you by Valentix, your strategic growth partner. At Valentix, we believe that trust and authentic relationships are the only true currency in high-value business. We challenge the status quo by building an AI-powered client acquisition engine that enhances your human connection, helping you move beyond the slow growth of referrals. Our AI-powered systems eliminate the grind, allowing you to break through the noise, automate tasks, and free up your time to focus on transformative client impact. If you're ready to build a predictable growth engine, learn more at valentix.io. Now let's dive into today's episode. Today on The Growth Shift, we're joined by Brian O'Connor, the founder of Aevisor Solutions. Brian's career is a compelling study in operational excellence and strategic adaptation built on over 2 decades of consulting and supply chain, including managing and navigating 30 M&A deals and spending 12 years at Pitney Bowes. After a career break, Brian launched Aevisor Solutions to serve the often overlooked small to mid-size e-commerce businesses that stall out due to systemic friction. His unique expertise as a fractional COO and his commitment to building trust by solving complex operational problems will provide a powerful framework for our audience. Brian, welcome to The Growth Shift.
Excellent. Thank you, David. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here. Huge fan of the show, and I've gotten a lot out of the episodes that you've already published. So thank you.
Appreciate that, Brian. Excited to have you here. It's our first episode of the year, and we're starting it off well. Brian, your career spans over 2 decades in high-stakes consulting and supply chain, including navigating massive downsizing at Pitney Bowes and handling over 30 M&A deals. Yes. Given your background in complex corporate operations and your experience with horizontal career moves, how did those foundational experiences ultimately lead you to found Aevisor Solutions and focus on solving these systemic friction points for smaller to mid-size e-commerce businesses?
So a lot of those moves were to pick up and learn new skills along the way, right? So I was intentionally building a career towards general management, which after Pitney Bowes, I left and I had a couple of general management roles, but before starting Aevisor Solutions. And so along the way, you realize if you're really going to understand how a business works, you need to know procurement, supply chain, logistics, all of the guts of the business. You need to know finance. You need to know a little bit about marketing. Not that you're going to be an expert in any one of those. You'll be an expert in a couple, but you need to know enough across the board that you're able to see how everything connects. So I spent a number of years as a consultant, learned a little bit from the outside, then went to Pitney Bowes, learned it on the inside, and then went on to 2 other employers, World of Books and Uncommon Goods and the e-commerce space, and really got to apply the lessons learned there.
So it sounds like through your journey, you were being very intentional about becoming a jack of all trades, so to speak, of course, as it falls within your area of expertise. This term jack of all trades, I think, is widely misunderstood, right? People miss the second half of this quote. Jack of all trades, master of none, but often, I'm forgetting the end of it here, but I think it's something like, but often better at most is better than master of one, something like that.
I've recently heard that quote, or the second half, and I was like, yeah, it really kind of resonates. And there is something to be said for being pretty knowledgeable about lots of different things, because you're going to do a better job at pattern recognition and spotting issues, right? Because the customer experiences the business horizontally. Meantime, a lot of experts think in terms of their individual silos. So being able to kind of come up a step and see that is a huge benefit.
Yeah, you've got a wider field of vision at the end of the day, so you can see more, right? If you can choose to specialize in a certain couple of verticals or silos, then you can really specialize in ways that clients will need, but you're also not foregoing the rest of everything that will be important along the way as well. Brian, you shared a pivotal moment in your career at Pitney Bowes when we were speaking the other day. You told me that there came a time when you proactively told your boss that your role was irrelevant and you offered to solve other problems, right? A very wider field of vision. Tell us more about that.
That came with a lot of personal risk, right? So when I first joined Pitney Bowes, and the internet can fact check me, but there was roughly 30,000 employees. And when I left, there was under 13,000. And part of that was downsizing through automation and using technology. Another part of that was also divesting whole divisions. But a huge part of what I learned from a mentor early in my career was every boss has something on their desk that they don't want to do, right? So do your job really, really well. Make yourself valuable by taking on some of those tasks, and always lead with adding value. There was a couple of different career points at Pitney Bowes where I was doing that, right? I was making sure I was doing my job really well. I was always asking for extra work. Hey, boss, you got something you don't want to do. It's probably really mundane, boring to you. It might be interesting to me and a growth opportunity. Throughout that process, I was able to say, hey, look, I've noticed we have a problem here, right? And we're downsizing, so we're not going to get new opportunity or sort of new budget. I've kind of set my team up where you actually don't need me at my level running it. So I'm going to raise my hand. You probably want to restructure this role, and maybe I could go over here and add more value on this other stuff. And that's like really how I made 2 of my 3 big career jumps.
Mm. Now, this is incredible. It's a great insight as well. I'd love to learn a little bit more about, right? The company was downsizing. A lot of roles were becoming irrelevant or redundant, right? Automation and other reasons as well. And where most people might start to, turn inwards and try and protect what they're doing and double down on the need for it and the importance of it, you realize that, hey, you know what? Perhaps the role I'm in right now will be removed or downsized and made irrelevant. Perhaps I should be the one to raise my hand and say this is the case, but let me do some other things for you. Do you think that this insight that you had was born out of perhaps what many people would have been going through at the time, desperation, or was it a deeper insight that you had just through how it is you were operating with a wider field of vision all throughout?
I think it's a deeper insight in terms of thinking more about abundance, and that ultimately the organization is going to value creation. And so while everyone else is trying to hold on and say, okay, I'm going to really, really protect what I got, and I'm going to make it sound bigger than it is, and try to BS my way around stuff, you just sort of go in and say, look, here's what's happening, right? We're all adults. We know you have this, right? Like, I'm adding value, probably not a tremendous amount of value. I can go add more value over here. And yeah, that comes with personal risk. I do some mentoring for my college, and I was mentoring a recent grad who is concerned about, and this is about 2 weeks ago, who's concerned about losing her role. And she's only been working for eight months, and her company's going through downsizing, which is really, really scary if you're 20-something years old and you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt. When you look at it, the U.S. economy this year is going to pay out close to $20 trillion of wages. Like, you can take whatever number you want and multiply it by 10, 20, 100. And it's just really a question of how do you go find opportunity to create value and capture some of it for yourself. And so I guess that's kind of my mindset on how I'm at it.
Yeah, I see the natural progression and change into entrepreneurship for you here as well, right? I mean, you took an opportunity that was a risk forwards in your position at Pitney Bowes, and you rose your hand. You said, let me move out of what I'm doing. Let me fill some other roles as well. You're talking about looking for additional ways that you can provide value, right? And you're also looking at the risk associated with that. Now, making that transition from the corporate world to entrepreneurship, how did you decide what was the right step for you to take with such a wide field of vision and so many different things that you could be doing?
Yeah, and it's definitely been a bit scary. 2024 is taking a little bit of a career break. I was doing some interviewing for new roles, wasn't really finding anything super exciting. Was going back and doing some side consulting. It's just some consulting on the outside. Friends were calling me asking if I could take a look at a contract for them. And I realized I really wanted to sort of go do this, and I was just very fortunate to have the support of my family to, give up a W-2 role and say, I'm going to start this consulting business as no brand, no recognition. It's been, 20 something years since I had a formal quota carrying sales role, was not really good at it. So let's put 100% of the pigs all into that basket. So really happy that my family has let me go on that journey. In terms of that, value creation mindset allows me to work with founders and more CEOs than I otherwise could have. And so that's been really great for me, is to work with a couple of different clients at any one time or across the year to really see kind of trends and help them overcome their hurdles. And where I am in my life, I'm really enjoying that.
You had familial support that I think many entrepreneurs don't have initially, right? You had experience behind you, but as you said, you're starting with no brand, no recognition. Most people's families are naysayers, unfortunately, because they can't see themselves doing that and born of fear, but you're willing to dive head in and you had that support. That's absolutely fantastic. So Brian, tell us a little bit more then. Aevisor Solutions, what is it you're actually doing with your clients, and how are you bringing the wealth of knowledge that you have to create value for them?
Yeah, so a lot of my clients is working on all of the really unsexy parts of the business, right? So that's your demand planning, your supply chain, your procurement, your logistics. And when you look at the life cycle of most businesses, there's a brilliant founder or a CEO who's really marketing focused. Say in the e-commerce space, you start off with like 4 SKUs and gut feeling, and you do all of this great work to get stuff to actually happen. And then you sort of reach a point where individual heroics aren't going to grow the business anymore. And you need systems and processes. And that's a really hard mind shift for someone who's built a business on individual heroics. So, do a lot of work with how do you do forecasting, demand planning, like let's actually get some contracts in place. Let's run some RFPs because your shipping rates are way too high, and work through all of those underlying issues.
Mm-hmm. So you're coming in and you're working with founders, CEOs, entrepreneurs who, what was the term you use? Heroic. They're heroic. They have a belief in themselves. They know what they want to do. They have a passion, and you can get started with passion, but you can't often sustain a business on passion alone, right? You need processes. You need more behind it. You need systems, and you need a fine-tooth comb perhaps to really improve systems as you go.
That's been really fun.
Yeah. Brian, do you have any stories that you might be able to share with us? Because this is a great conceptual overview of, how it is you're coming in and you're helping people. But for those out there who are curious about, maybe they're in that position as well where they feel, hey, my business has been doing pretty well, but my growth has stalled. I'd like to make some changes. I know I should. I don't know which direction I need to go. I mean, do you have any success stories that you could share with us about how you came in and perhaps you helped a client in this position and the results that you were actually able to drive for them with this?
Yeah, sure. So one of my early clients I was working with, it was through referral networking. I was introduced to them. I went to their website to go buy their product because, on an initial Zoom call, I want to be like, oh, look, I have your product here, and here's kind of my thoughts about it. I tried to complete 3 sales, and their customer service department, after I completed the sale, like a day later, emailed me back saying, oh, the product's out of stock. So, it led to a conversation around, I tried to complete 3 sales. This is what I want to do. I want to hold your product up, and I couldn't. And it was just sort of kind of perfect timing because his accountant had told him his inventory balance had grown really big, and which made it sense, which he was like, oh, like that's why cash isn't in my bank account. Like the P&L looks good, but the cash doesn't look great. So we went through this whole entire discussion and a little bit of discovery on when he was running the business and it was on his kitchen table, he was updating an Excel spreadsheet of inventory every day. And then it went from kitchen table to they did their own fulfillment. Then it went to a 3PL, and, people changed. But what he didn't realize was nobody was updating that daily Excel spreadsheet. And so you're like, well, okay, so that's why your inventory is wrong. But more importantly, like you've got the new model coming out. When did you stop buying the old model? And it's like, oh, yeah, no, I didn't tell the procurement people to stop buying the old model. So you're like, great. So now you got all this inventory that is old on the old model, right? It's like when Apple comes out with the iPhone 17 like they stopped buying the iPhone 16 a year or 6 months, so they don't have that inventory. He wasn't doing that. So anyways, over the course of 3 months, we fixed all of those issues, worked with him to move some really old, slow moving inventory. Consulting term for this is SKU rationalization, and freed up a little over $250,000 worth of cash flow.
It's a pretty substantial amount.
Yeah, for a small business, that's like a huge amount of money.
Oh, absolutely. Especially when you're looking at needing to maintain your stock and maintain your supply so you can make more sales, right? This is really insightful, right? Because, what we're talking about here is data accuracy and data integrity and making sure that you actually know exactly where you're at when you're there so you can make intelligent decisions based on that. How often do you think it is that small businesses are in a position where they just don't have clean data to work?
I would say almost 100% of the time that the data is not clean. And I challenge people to really get close to a small business to understand the data quality.
What do you think leads to this, low data quality in a small business?
That's a really good question. I don't have a great answer for that. I think a lot of it is in small businesses, people are wearing many, many hats, and there's a lot of focus on the immediate fire in front of it.
Mm-hmm. Just trying to keep up with the daily flow of things slipping between the cracks or, slipping up between your fingers. For small businesses who might be in that position where they feel like, maybe it's a solopreneur wearing all the hats and they feel like maybe they don't have the right oversight on all of their data, right? They don't have a full, clear picture. They're struggling to keep up with that. What would you recommend as a first step someone should take to start making sure that, they are starting to look at implementing the right systems, or they're at least on the right path to make sure that they can clean that up?
So I would say prioritize it based on what is holding you back from achieving your goals. So if you have, let's say, a problem with sales, let's focus on the CRM data, because maybe like the vendor master is not all that important. It might be quicker and easier. And likewise, if what's really holding you back is your cost of goods is significantly higher than the market, then maybe the CRM takes a back seat and you focus on the cost data and the vendor data. So really prioritize based on what's going to be most impactful to you achieving your goals, and be really, really aggressive on that prioritization.
Prioritization. I love it. So Brian, you clearly have a wealth of knowledge and expertise when you're coming in and helping clients, and you can drive profound change and impact as well with what you do. Many consultants are in a similar position, right? A ton of experience, right? Mm-hmm. Often great client success stories as well. But in today's world, especially with AI, coming out and people, let's say, misusing it at times, one of the most fundamental, most important aspects of businesses has become the most challenging, right? Client acquisition. There's a lot of noise. There's a lot of confusion, sometimes AI driven. There's a lot of new consultants entering the market as well. You shared a story that I think was incredible about how you acquired this one client, right? You wanted to buy their product, show them that you bought it, talk about it as well. But you have the knowledge, you have the experience, you have the results, you have creative ways of getting clients. In today's world, with all of the market forces out there that are making it more challenging than ever to grow client acquisition, what have you witnessed, despite everything you have in your favor, when it comes to the challenges in today's market with acquiring clients?
I spent a decent part of 2025 trying to do cold outreach. It's the classic. I'd come up with a target list, a list of names, what's the value prop. Cutting through the noise in cold outreach has just been really brutally hard. It's not something I plan on doing for 2026. Like, I got all my clients through referrals, and I think where it's really a matter of staying on top of your network, continuing to add value, and keep top of mind. And while there are a lot of competition out there, and like the list of names keep growing every day of people who claim to be experts, I think when you can sit down and have a conversation with someone, they can very quickly figure out what your expertise is, or where you are a expert at. And for me, like, I know there's situations maybe on paper I could do it, but I'm not 10x better than the average, so I'm not shy of telling people that.
I love what you said there. You were trying cold outreach, and it's become like through 2025 more challenging than ever. But you realize as well that something that we believe here is that relationships are the most important to business. Referrals can be some of the most powerful. Getting into a real conversation with someone, with all of the AI generated junk and noise that's out there, especially with cold outreach, I believe that pretty soon we're going to be seeing a little bit of a reversal. There's so much AI generated junk out there that people are starting to crave real human interactions. So leaning into referrals, yes, but also leaning into ways of how can you actually get in front of somebody for the right conversation that's more meaningful rather than just, hey, look at me, I'm so great, talk with me and buy my thing. So you've tried cold outreach. You're leaning into the power of referrals. You've got a ton of business experience as well, Brian, right? What else is going through your mind, and what else are you looking at when it comes to how you can acquire clients, perhaps in a faster way, right? Because referrals are great, but often lead to slow growth.
Yeah. That's a great question. I would love to have a longer conversation with you after the podcast for sure. The other places I'm focusing on are all long burn sort of things, right? Content marketing, thought leadership, but in terms of things that are going to accelerate growth in 2026, I definitely don't have a solid answer.
Yeah, hey, well, I mean, I think everyone's still trying to find that answer, right? Like, how can you break through? How can you have those meaningful conversations and interactions? So it definitely doesn't shine a negative light on you or detract from the value of what you're doing. I think you're moving in the right direction. And as I said, I believe strongly there will be a little bit of a reversal pretty soon where people are actually seeking out experts rather than necessarily seeing who will come to them or, trying to sift through all the junk and the noise that is on. So Brian, what we're talking about here a little bit is when it comes to client acquisition, you were talking about doing a lot of cold outreach. It's extremely time consuming. It takes a while. The yield can be pretty low. So you were leaning into what would drive results, right? Part of what we're talking about here and what is underlying this is saving time, right? Being able to focus on the tasks that have the highest yield, which is where I believe AI is one of the most powerful tools that we can use. You're pretty deeply entrenched in AI yourself. Tell us a little bit about how it is you're also leveraging AI to save time so you can focus on these higher value tasks.
Yeah, so first I teach AI at my local college, sort of intro class from very beginning all the way through sort of more advanced infrastructure so that mid-career professionals aren't going to get left behind. And so I practice what I preach. So I've set up a very simple RAG, which for people who aren't deep into AI is like effectively a database or a set of Google Docs that I tell my AI tool to only look at those things because that's trusted information, and don't worry about what you learned on Reddit about operations. Just look at this data and only consider that data that AI provided you. I've given it a lot of context around its role, right? So it is a pretty decent analyst, associate level person, and I use it a lot to challenge my thinking and identify the blind spots. What are the trends and patterns that I'm missing? And that really helps gives me a lot of confidence on what I'm writing and what I'm publishing. So I use it that way a lot.
Yeah, it seems like some of the intention behind this was it being very intentional about making sure that there's no sort of hallucination, right? By just going to ChatGPT and asking some opinions or some advice or for some information. And I think this is where a lot of people, especially when it comes to data integrity and security, are concerned. Right? If you go on to, Grok or Gemini or whatever it is, you really have to spend a lot of time validating and verifying the data that you get, especially if it's going to be used in some pretty intricate ways. The RAG system that you set up yourself, is this something that you think is a little more complex than the average person should seek out? Or if someone does have concerns about data security and they want to use a system like this, how should they go about perhaps finding a partner who would be able to help them with that?
So if you aren't that concerned about data security, in my case, since I'm going to be publishing this, I'm not particularly concerned about the security aspect. I'm not using confidential information or proprietary information. I would say a typical user should be able to go do this on their own. They have to go to a paid version, right? That's usually like $20 a month. Do a very simple API integration to like Google Drive, which There's a gazillion videos on how to do it. The first time you do it, it'll take you 15 minutes. And then after that, it's, a 2-minute exercise. If you're doing something where security is really important, you're going to need to find a developer or a agency that you vet and trust. And that's it. I would also say one of the things I'm super excited about in AI and doesn't get a lot of airtime is there's these vertical or really industry applications that are being built that are really, really rad, and they already have safety and security into it. For the legal industry, Harvey's one. If you're interested in finance, Skull.ai is another good one. And those are generally marketed as like co-pilots. And so you might already be in an industry that already has that sort of co-pilot set up for you.
So we're looking at, how people can, or what platforms people can use to make sure that they're getting the right information, the right data, and that they can trust the source, right? You have some experience in this yourself. You set up, a RAG system on your own. From your perspective, what are the biggest risks and opportunities for businesses that are perhaps rushing to deploy AI without first ensuring that their data is high integrity and that they are taking the right steps to set up a RAG system or, have the right infrastructure in place?
If I was CEO, let's say $15 million, $20 million business, the first thing I would do is appoint someone who's really known within the business for fixing problems to be the AI person. We can give them a cool title. Someone else will come up with it. And focus on getting the language out into the company, focus then on a couple of individual really, really important workflows that take a lot of time and are repeated, sort of processes, right? So that could be that could be the process by which you do pricing. That could be the process by which you do content generation. There's hundreds of opportunities, and really get out there, get a very small team to sort of go build that answer to that particular problem. Where I see a lot of companies is they want to do a big AI implementation. That's probably not right. Like, it's great if you're a huge company and you've got tons of resources, but if you're a smaller or mid-sized company, focus on narrowly solving problems. And by the time you get to your third or fourth or fifth problem that you've solved, you're going to look back and be like, oh, wow, we just implemented AI. And you didn't do it with any of the big fanfare that a large consultant would operate.
So nothing is too small to start, but just making sure that you're taking those bite-sized chunks and moving in the right direction, because things compound with time, right? So rather than waiting to deploy some huge AI initiative, start making the small changes. Appoint someone you can trust, who you know and who knows your systems, to start in a small way and lead to greater change from there. I love it. Brian, your story covers operational excellence, strategic adaptation, and the critical importance of trust. For the founders, coaches, and growth-minded listeners who are in the middle of their own growth shift, what's the single most important piece of advice you'd leave them with about building trust, solving systemic problems, and achieving sustainable growth?
Yeah, trust is built by doing what you said you were going to do, by delivering and not promising things that you aren't going to be able to achieve. So focus on that. Focus on leading with value and what you're going to help create for someone. And if you just keep making those right small steps over time, that is going to compound into something bigger.
Fantastic. Brian, for any of our audience listening who might like to learn more about what you're doing with Aevisor Solutions, or perhaps they're looking for someone to help them out with their own systems, what would be the best way to find you or reach you online? I'm
really active on LinkedIn. You can find me there. You can also find me at aevisorsolutions.com. And either of those are places that I'm easily found.
Excellent. And we'll add the spelling in there for Aevisor Solutions for anyone who might not have picked up on that. It'll be included in the description below, but that is Aevisor Solutions. Brian, thank you so much for joining us on The Growth Shift today.
Awesome. Thank you, David. It's been a huge honor.
Another powerful conversation on The Growth Shift. If you, like our guests, are ready to turn your expertise into a predictable, scalable growth engine, one that eliminates the grind of prospecting and enhances your high-value relationships, then it's time to connect with Volentix. We are not a marketing agency. We are your strategic growth partner. building intelligent systems that ensure your client acquisition is predictable, not dependent on chance. To see how our AI-powered frameworks can free up your time and fill your calendar with decision makers, visit Valentix.io. Thank you for joining us on The Growth Shift. We'll see you next time.